Thank you for joining us today. I am Clark Richter, the founder of FASA LLC, operator of Channel Navigator, an online channel intelligence tool. Our webinar today is Identifying MSP Partners with Channel Navigator. Here's a brief agenda, what we'll cover today. Start out with an overview of the company, talk about some of the channel intelligence channels, look at some of the numbers that we have on MSPs, and then go into two specific use cases of a cloud file sharing company using Channel Navigator for their partner recruitment campaigns, and then illustrate these through a demonstration. FASA LLC was founded by myself last year in February. We launched. My background is over 15 years with companies like Checkpoint, WebSense, and Citrix, working in channel management, sales management, enterprise sales, a variety of different roles. Really, the origin of the company came from my moving from company to company and seeing a gap in the marketplace for business intelligence tools, specifically for the IT channel. We're headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, about 5 employees. 3 of those people are analysts that pretty much update the database. On an ongoing basis, we have a technical person, and then myself. I'm your primary sales and marketing contact. The parent company also does some channel development consulting, developing channel programs, early partner recruitment, things of that nature. Channel Navigator is a subscription-based channel intelligence tool, so we'll spend our time talking about today. We also take our database and publish a subset of that to another solution called iRumbo, which is targeted more at end users that are looking to identify a local company that can help them with their IT needs. Our customers are a broad range of vendors, service providers, recruiters, and solution providers themselves. We typically work with the channel marketing or salespeople in application, security, storage, pretty much across all lines of IT and telecom. So, channel intelligence challenges that we see. Part of why we started the business was vendors have a lack of business profile information on partners. Most people, in their CRM systems don't really have much beyond the ability to segment beyond partner and non-partner. The traditional data sources that one would look to enrich their CRM systems are not really designed for the channel and IT industry. They typically use NAC and SIC codes that were created by the federal government years ago. A company may have incorporated as an electrical engineering company, and now they're doing managed services. Doesn't do much to help identify the businesses. And nobody really has any information they offer in terms of the partner relationships that are a big portion of what these businesses are built on. It's a dynamic industry with high employee turnover, lots of mergers and acquisitions, and most people are driven by monthly and quarterly metrics that change throughout the year. So everything that you start the year with, a certain course of action, you may have to change that mid-year. Finally, the majority of these channel companies are private businesses, and there's limited information publicly available on them other than what's on their website. And then the channel marketing organizations specifically have very limited funds when compared to marketing to end users, so they have to make good use of these funds and develop a very hard ROI in terms of what they're using their money for. So the database that we operate, some highlights are it's about 15,000 company headquarters at the moment. About 3,000 of those are managed service providers. That's what we'll be talking about today. We cover most technology areas. Our strength is probably in particular in the data center and companies that do security and infrastructure types of solutions as well as cloud. We have over 40 fields to identify these businesses by, and we'll show that in the demonstration. One of the more unique data points we have is multi-vendor relationships identified. And we use solution services and technologies beyond vendors to identify companies and typically have the employee revenue estimates. We also then go out there and find contacts, keep those up to date, and identify them based on level, department, title, specialization, and so forth. Our methodology is pretty straightforward. We go out to the big companies that have public partner locators. We try to pull down the baseline information for these partners. Then we have people that go out there and do the tedious process of trying to extract information from their websites, update the profile. We take that and offer that up to the companies because they're going to publish their data in iRumbo for free. We offer up to them to update their profile themselves. We don't necessarily get a large opt-in rate on that, but nonetheless we do offer it up to them. We do get data directly from these companies, and then we go out there and try to find and identify and populate the key contacts. So we try to keep these contacts up to date on a monthly basis. We're regularly purging about 2 to 3%, and we're regularly updating the data on all these accounts manually, unless they're being updated by the companies themselves. We have a variety of use cases that people utilize us. We have early stage companies to analyze different channel models, channel marketing for recruitment, so we basically provide contacts and segment for specific email marketing campaigns, channel marketing just to populate the CRM for their existing accounts or partners. So they want to round out the contacts, get management level contacts, size of company, other vendor relationships, things of that nature, and import that into their own CRM system. We have individual channel managers who use us just to identify key partners maybe in their territory, as well as solution providers that use the data to identify acquisition targets. We even have event and media companies that many vendors rely on to promote their products or services, use us as a source to augment their own email market databases to promote your products and services. Here's a sample of some of the customers that we work with. As you can see, they're a broad range. We do a lot in security, but also cover most areas of IT and telecom. So for today's example, we're going to use two different examples. Companies that are in the same space that we worked with, we're withholding their names just because they didn't agree to share their names. The first one is a cloud file sharing vendor that's SMB focused. They have differentiation that they provide secure file sharing. They want to provide, or their model is more of a white label MSP-led model rather than going after the end customers themselves. They have an inside sales team already on board, and they are interested in a profile of like 3 to 50 employees that do MSP, and they have, because of the security differentiation, they feel their product will do well in specific verticals. The second one is a little bit different angle. They're a very well-funded file sharing company that has a solution, pretty mature company. They have 5 channel managers around the country. They've already tried to launch a channel marketing partner recruitment program, outsourced it to a company, and felt they had kind of an unsuccessful pilot for what they paid was a lot of money. And they're looking for have some specific technology relationships with NetApp, where their technology will integrate with NetApp, and they see it as an easy add-on sale to companies to offer a cloud-based file sharing solution integrated with the back-end NetApp, maybe in the private data center. They also are interested in some additional vendor relationships that they have from their technology standpoint, and looking at those ecosystems for some targeted email messaging. So MSPs by the numbers. You see a lot of numbers thrown out there. The number that we here on the low end is 5,000 managed service providers in North America. I've heard numbers up to 20,000 as high as that. So what are these MSPs? MSPs, can be a broad range of companies, from a large outsourcer like a CSC on down to a guy with a phone that monitors your firewall for a 5-employee company. But the sweet spot for them seems to be when they're acting as the IT department for end users. This is typically less than 50 employee types of companies in the United States and Canada. There's about 5.8 million of these businesses, believe it or not. It's 96% of the companies that are headquartered in North America fit this profile, and most of these companies do not have an IT department. So the managed service provider essentially functions as their IT department. So why managed services? It's a growing trend among solution providers. Many of them come from traditional VAR or consulting types of business practices, and growing more and more, they're getting into the managed service market. The number one reason they cite, based on the CompTIA study from last year, is 67% of them say to protect their customer base. So they see this as a way to protect the customer from other competing technologies or vendors, and more they're adopting this model in order to protect their customers. Insight Research had a study recently. 11.6% annual growth for the next 4 years is projected for managed service providers. Channel Navigator, the 2112 group, had a study out recently where they're quoted as saying MSPs are generating 40% profit margin, as opposed to traditional product resale or even reselling somebody else's cloud SaaS solution. You might see margins between 10 and 20%. So obviously it's a much more attractive business model, increases the the value of the company of these managed recurring revenues. And in effect, they become the customers in this SMB market rather than the end users themselves, because they're in a position to dictate which technology those customers use. So here's a graphic to kind of capture these different types of managed service providers. As you can see, anybody really in the distribution tier 1 or tier 2 can function as a managed service provider from our perspective. We're going to focus most of our time on the consultant and VAR categories in tier 2, but any one of these, from an IBM does managed services, right? And they manage different size customers and so forth. So the numbers that we have out there, we updated this graphic. We've done this presentation webinar back in February. Just wanted to illustrate the growth of our database. Total numbers, we have about 16,000 companies today in our database. Those are headquarters again. Of those, about 3,400 do managed services, and then we break those down in different types. 2,500 doing value-added reselling, meaning they will actually sell somebody else's technology and bundle their services around it. Service provider may or may not sell somebody else's technology. They tend to be more service focused. So this, if you will, it's a large carrier like an AT&T or Verizon, on down to maybe a hosting provider that has their own data center and maybe has other underlying technologies bundled as part of that service, but they're first and foremost a service provider. The consultant category, which is almost 200, are companies that really don't want to participate in any product sale. They just want to manage the solution for you. And the other is where we would capture the remaining outsourcers, systems integrators, and so forth, which is not necessarily our forte in terms of the data we've collected. As you can see by the employee counts, the bulk of our data are smaller businesses, less than 100 employees. We have almost 1,000 that are less than 5, 1,200 that are between 5 and 20 employees. So with that, we're going to shift gears and move into a live demo here. So I'm logged in. Users either have direct access into the database, or we can provide information however you like. Typically, customers use us, that the salespeople have direct access into the database, and the marketing people more request lists, so to speak, based on certain initiatives. So as you can see here in the key metrics, there's again the high-level numbers that we have in the database, and we break those down in different ways by types of solutions they sell and so forth, as well as the contacts, about 80,000. What we'll do first is just show you a particular account so you can understand some of the details that we're trying to gather on these companies as we construct our different searches. So the first section is primarily the headquarter location, and moving down, we'll have a link if they have other offices, link to like social networks, things like that. The next section we call Business Insight is where we categorize this company, in this case as a VAR, value-added reseller, and then we profile them in different ways. So you'll notice solutions are kind of broad-reaching categories based on Gartner. We have things like cloud computing and security, server storage, right? So they're in general areas. These are typically comprised of more granular technologies and services. So something like cloud computing could mean managed service plus security. It could mean hosting plus server. It's a combination of two different services and technologies. We have try to track data on facilities, if they have their own data center or a rack in a data center, how many employees they have. Sometimes we even have a breakdown of services versus product. A revenue number. We typically encourage customers to rely more on the employee number than the revenue number, just because these are private companies. They don't necessarily record revenue in any consistent manner, and employees typically have to report your payroll to the federal government, so you can't really fudge those numbers too much. Moving down under Partner Insight is where we capture on the left-hand side, typically off their website, where they list their partnerships, who their business partners are, other vendors. Sometimes we show some movement as they drop partners off of that over time, list their distributors. On the right-hand side here, vendor partnership levels is off of manufacturer sites that actually list their vendor partners and their levels, so we verify that with the manufacturers. And then the final section is Customer Insight, maybe the verticals they sell into, regions, size of customers, maybe even some key accounts that they sell into. You can export this data via PDF here. And when you're logged in here, that'll basically give you just a summary of the basic information that we just showed you here, as well as some of the key management context. So you can export it that way. Now, we're in an account, more importantly, you want to identify some context. That's under more information. We go in here, and you know, these guys have 75 employees. We got about 25. So you know, we'll have the senior level contacts. Should have those in here, as well as, you know, many of the staff level, primarily focused on sales and technical. As the bigger the company gets, sometimes they have practice managers. That's kind of our focus. You can see we have not only a title, but we also break down departments and levels. So if you're doing email marketing, you can segment based on, you know, technology, or, you know, certain departments, certain levels of people. Primarily, their verified email addresses are business addresses. More often than not, they're a central office number. These aren't real big companies. You can take out an individual contact via vCard as you're logged in here. You can also use this tag cloud feature to kind of maintain your own list as you use the data on an ongoing basis. So with that, we'll show you a couple different ways you can search within here. We'll search first for a company ConnectWise, which is hopefully most of you are familiar with if you're in the MSP community. You know, they offer a management platform for MSPs. If we search for ConnectWise and account name, we'll come up with ConnectWise headquarters. You know, they're part of the ecosystem. We don't really profile the vendors per se, but oftentimes they're part of OEM relationships and things of that nature. So if we go under advanced search, we can search on any of the fields that we showed you there. In this case, I'm going to go to vendor partners, contains ConnectWise, and we should find companies that are partnered or utilize the ConnectWise platform in their managed service offering. Not that this is a complete picture of this. This particular company doesn't list their partners or customers right on a public way. So this is just data that we've gathered over time profiling these businesses. So if we search in the top right, it takes a little bit longer for the results, but we should see it momentarily. Now this will list all the contacts or accounts that have anywhere that word in it. So it's one quick way to search. Now, one caveat to this is in any of those ways I just showed you that we search, we don't go back to the results that we searched for. So what we'll do now is transition to a filter, which is essentially a saved search, and show you some of the different ways that we can identify businesses based on the examples that we've outlined. So the first filter I'm going to go into is the one that we were talking about with target a little bit more at the SMB channel for this hosted file sharing company. So we can start out real broad and search for companies that do managed services. This is across every type, right? As we mentioned before, managed services is a service, so these could be VARs, they could be direct marketing resellers, they could be consultants, outsourcers, the whole gambit. So there's 3,400 total in the database. Now we're going to narrow that down a bit, and we'll add employees to that. Or maybe let's just rule out certain types. Let's just look at the VARs, for example. So we say starts with VAR, and we're going to say less than 50 employees. Employees is less than 50. You only want the smaller ones. Or we can say 20, you know, you have it. So this should narrow the list down substantially. From 3,400, now we're at 2,100, didn't narrow it down that much. Let's put a bottom threshold on that as well. Employees is more than, we don't want, you know, necessarily the real small ones. And, you know, some of these we may not have the employees for, we haven't been able to identify it yet, but at least you know they're, so we'll say greater than or equal to 3. So that should narrow the field quite a bit. You have 1,700. Now we can add some other criteria in here. So there might be different ways we want to segment the market and do email marketing. There's certain differentiation. We've mentioned, for example, customer vertical, you know, that they sell into. So we have, you know, we can go and capture certain information in the customer verticals. Not that this is 100% accurate. Doesn't mean other companies don't sell into these verticals or whatever, but this is the data that we have. We could say we want to do something maybe that's finance focused, right? We can just say finance is a vertical, and I did that wrong. Sorry, it's very finicky. I think it's financial. You don't have to match it exactly. You can just match part of it. So we have 341 of those companies that sell into the financial vertical specifically. Likewise, we could do that for legal or healthcare. That's one way. So another way we might want to look at this is other features of the solution beyond security in like the BYOD, right? This particular company had some, utilized this not only for PCs, obviously, and Macs, but also for mobile devices. So they're interested in companies that are specifically in the business of doing managed services around mobility, and we capture that in the solutions field, that they sell mobility solutions, so we can narrow it down that way. 349. Another way to look at it would be to look at certain vendor ecosystems. Maybe they plug into. There are the companies like Autotask or ConnectWise. There's the RMM vendors like Level Platforms and such. There's been a lot of consolidation in that space, but nonetheless, you could do it by vendors specifically. Maybe you have some technology integration with. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of tackle it. So one other thing that these people were interested in specifically was, regularly there's lists that are published out there, right? MSP Mentor has an annual list where they list the top 500 MSPs around the world. So they were interested in that list specifically. We routinely go out there, anything that's public domain, we'll go out there and verify that we've got these companies in our database or not. And we can identify and tag those in certain ways. For example, that one we capture in this ranking field, like when we do Inc. 5000, things like that. So you could get companies that are in the database that are in the MSP Mentor list. We've got about 300 of them, which is pretty much all the ones in the United States. Some of the other ones were outside the country. I'm sorry, U.S. and Canada. No disrespect, Canada. Another thing that might be of interest is certain associations or ecosystems, things like SMB Nation, ASCII2, CompTIA. So, finding companies that are affiliated with certain associations or have certain, like CompTIA, MSP trust marks and things. So you can identify those under the category of Partner Insight Association memberships. When we say something like CompTIA, then you find about 1,000 companies that are CompTIA partners of some sort or another. I think they have about 2,000 worldwide, or maybe 2,500. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, it's just another way you can get some added value out of the database for different types of list sources that you're kind of looking for. So the second example that we had was a little bit different in nature, a little bit more of an enterprise play. They had a specific integration with NetApp. So initially their kind of goal was to go out there and engage NetApp partners, as this is an add-on sale to add file sharing to a private NetApp infrastructure. They had a channel team, so it wasn't really a numbers game with them necessarily. It was more they wanted to quickly identify these companies and have the key contacts to arm their salespeople with how to go out there and engage them. So we created a filter that the companies sell NetApp, they do managed services, so they're used to offering these types of solutions in the cloud to their customers, or it's part of their sales operation to do that. They're a type var, we could change that, and we add another caveat to rule out the ones that are already doing hosting, right? So if they have their own DR center with a NetApp backend, they may actually have built their own type of file sharing system that they're selling into customers. So we wanted to eliminate those that were doing hosting as well. So in that case, we come up with 145 of the 600 some odd NetApp partners that are in the database. We had a pretty focused list where then they could go, their salespeople can go in here, they can dig into these specific accounts and look for specific contacts, right? It's not as easy of a sale into these bigger organizations. You don't just send an email out to the owner. You need to sometimes find a practice manager, multiple practice managers. It might span security and data storage to get some buy-in. So you'll find contacts in here not only at the management level, but below that, as well as connections to LinkedIn and things that you'd also use to try to augment it. So that was the second example of the file sharing company using this to identify those NetApp partners specifically. They also had some other vendor-specific searches, to do some segmented email marketing. We don't need to go into the details here, but just like we search for NetApp, we can find Google partners in here, we can find Salesforce partners in here, and so forth. So with that, we're going to segue back into the presentation here, just to kind of give you a high level of how we sell this solution. It can be bought as little as $99 a month for individual access, and then we scale it and try to design it, structure it basically based on how many of these records or accounts and contacts you're really interested in for your business, and how many users may have would require access to the database, and try to structure a plan based on that. It basically starts out at about $1,000 and kind of goes up from there. Success story. This was a company we worked with last year that was willing to go public with a success story with us. Mocha 5 was a desktop, or is a desktop VDI solution. They were aggressively launching a new channel partner program, and they used us essentially as a source for lists, as well as they had an inside sales team that had access to the database. So we did some email marketing with them, or they did it themselves. They had some specific differentiation. They supported Apple, iOS, whereas other vendors didn't, so that helped to do some email segmented marketing with them as well. We had some great results from the email marketing campaign. We got 125 web registrations, very little opt-out rate, and that launched the program in terms of signing new partners and continued throughout the year. So in summary, Channel Navigator saves your company time and money by bringing channel business intelligence and the contacts into one self-service solution. We provide an ongoing refresh of the data for a dynamic industry, so it's not a one-shot at a list, so to speak, but ongoing access to this data. Anything you see, you can put into your own CRM system. Our goal here is to enrich your own CRM system, not have you logged into ours every day. Marketing and sales can operate together rather than independently. You'll walk away with tangible results, meaning you've got contacts, you've got all the data that you want. It's not paying $10,000 for a trade show and you get 200 bad leads or mediocre leads. You get as much access to the contacts as you want. And a lot of these people are quite busy. They don't necessarily go out to trade shows or go sit in seminars and things like that. So it helps you basically identify these people quickly. One relationship can usually cover the cost of access to this system, one successful new partnership. With that, we'll open it up to questions, and I thank you for your time.